So,
Stop touching your mic and stop swearing as we start. Welcome to Uncovered with Jarrod Kimber and Bharat Sundaresan. Now,
I'm losing control over my
you
mic.
still
Hold
play
on.
with the mic still. Stop swearing and stop playing with the mic.
Okay. Oh no. Okay,
Oh my
sorry.
God. I'd like to apologise to anyone with human ears who happen to be listening to this. Lucky Nick, our regular producer, is on holiday, so
Oh no, yeah. Nick would not have let this pass.
absolutely fine. Thank you for everyone following us on YouTube, or if you're now following us on Twitter, where we stream these, and of course it will be out in a few hours on the podcast as well. Barrett's got to go do some commentary soon, so there's 3 test matches on. I suppose the most important one is the one that's finished because it actually finished. I thought Bangladesh played very, very well. I'm not sure I saw little bits and I focused in on parts of the game. But I slept through the last bit because they played on Christmas Day, which is the 5th game that I found that's been played on Christmas Day. There might be a few others that I couldn't find. It was a very hard thing to search. So I missed it on Christmas Day, but I think all things considered, I had a piece that I never quite got to, but it's on my board, which says, Bangladesh sneaky good right now. After the first test, I'm going to be honest, that video didn't get made, but after this test, I was thinking, I'm not that far away.
Yeah, I mean, look, it took Bangladesh a while to start getting over the line on and off in white ball cricket against India, and this is the first time it feels like they're getting closer and closer to India in Test cricket. Unfortunately, of course, they don't play India as often in Test cricket as they do in some of the other formats, so they might have to wait a while before they do finally record a win against this Indian team. But how things have changed, though. I remember my first. Oh, sorry, I'm just struggling with this mic. I'm so sorry.
You are struggling with the weight. For those who don't know, so Bangladesh made 227 in the first innings. India made 314. And at that stage, kind of felt like they were far enough ahead, I suppose. Bangladesh only added an extra 231 in the second innings. But India, they were 4 for 40 overnight. Does that sound right?
Yeah, they were.
Something around there. Which is one reason I would have got up if it wouldn't have been Christmas morning, and I probably would have watched it. And then, crawled over the line. There was a late drop. Was it Mominul Haq who did a drop right towards the end? So
Yeah.
they were right in it. And in the end, India passed the total with 7 wickets down. So 145 for 7. But yeah, I thought, all things considered, was a very good game for Bangladesh, and they've got to be pretty happy with that.
No, exactly. I'll go back to my point that I was making before my mic just dropped on me, literally dropped on me. Um, 2010 is when I went to Bangladesh for the first time, and India played 2 test matches there. And I remember the first test in particular in Chittagong, where Mushfiqur Rahim made his first test 100. And this is when, well, yeah, they'd been playing Test cricket for 10 years, but they were still a very young Test nation in that sense back then. And the media was, a lot of people say a lot of things about the Bangladeshi media, but they're just a passionate lot. And I remember the whole press box exploding with delight when Mushfiqur Rahim finally got over the line. And that was also, and it almost felt like they'd won. It was a big moment for them, for one of their own, to make 100 against India. And that was also the infamous test match or infamous series where Virender Sehwag captained the first test and called them an ordinary side. And I'll never forget Jared the next morning in that, what was the old Chittagong press box. I think they refurbished it for the 2011 World Cup. So it's this tiny little box, lovely ground, lovely place, Chittagong. And India, like they were here, they were 4 for 40. And then Sachin Tendulkar made 100, I know. But when they were 4 for 40, there were, I think, 6 Indian journalists, including me. We were surrounded by the Bangladeshi press, and they were all shouting out the same thing to us. Who's ordinary now? Who's ordinary now? And I was like, I didn't call them ordinary. I like Bangladesh. Like, I think Mahmudullah is my favorite player. So and it was quite intimidating, to be honest. And then I remember Sachin Tendulkar making 100. And then the press conference was quite volatile. And Sachin Tendulkar used to get these eyes if he was unhappy with the question. And he gave those eyes to a lot of Bangladeshi journalists that day. But that's how it used to be. But now, they won a lot at home. They've beaten a lot of teams at home. And they just seem to be inching closer and closer to beating India. But, the one takeaway for me from this match was what a year it has been for Ashwin. What a couple of years it's been for him. Scoring the winning runs in a World Cup match against Pakistan in front of 93,000 people at the MCG just 2 months ago, to now starring with the bat in a run chase in a Test match. I mean, these are
Pinch,
things that
pinch blocking for the Royals as well. Like
but
he's
exactly,
after years
exactly.
of people like us go, I think he's kind of an all-rounder. He's like, no, everyone. I want you to definitely think of me as an all-rounder now.
Yes,
If you haven't seen, he also has a YouTube channel. So subscribe, press the bell icon
you
for me
should.
and him. And for Bharat. And Bharat's probably got one as well. But yeah, no, so I thought that was interesting. We've obviously had two, the first day of both those tests. By the time the podcast comes out, for a few people, we might be into the second day. But no, I would say nothing massively to report from the MCG, other than the fact that South Africa's batting still can't go very well. Obviously, Green took a fifer, more the tail end, middle order, than running through the top order, but certainly he was quite handy. And Baba Azam, I think did he equal the most hundreds by a Pakistani in international cricket year? Mohammed Yusuf and Yunus Khan, I think, so. Again, very similar for me. It was really interesting because recently people were starting to say to me, what technical flaws does Baba Azam have, which stops him from making runs? Going on to make big runs. I was like, that's not a technical flaw. There's not a switch that happens when you get to 50. If there was, Joe Root would have spent all the money in the world to work out
absolutely.
how to get past it. Let's take a break here. We've got what I'm going to do is, I'm just going to run through the top line news stories from all the IPL. So don't worry, I'm not going to be, asking you where Gurbaz is going to be batting, or
Thank God.
is Harpreet Bragg finally going to get a full season this year? But I'm going to go through the top news items from each IPL. So get your IPL auction head on, and we'll have a short break, and we'll be back in a moment. Thank you for actually putting that on, by the way.
You're listening to Cricket's Conversation on 99.94. Whatever your team, we have the show for you on podcast, YouTube, or on the 99.94 app. We have India, England, South Africa, West Indies, and now Sri Lanka covered. If you want to find us, the best way is to follow us on social media at 9994DM by downloading the 9994 app or Google 99.94 on podcast. We speak cricket.
Bharat and Jarrod here on Uncovered. Let's speak cricket. Sunrisers. So I've done the first 7.5 teams. I haven't quite finished Lucknow and Gujarat or CSK, but I have very strong feelings on about the first 7 teams anyway. Who's going to captain the Sunrisers this year? Because I've been looking at that squad over and over again, and we know why this is a problem, because it was a problem when David Warner was captain. It was a problem when Kane Williamson was being captain. That's just recent times. I feel like there's another really obvious one I'm missing as well.
Yeah. I mean, they used to have that. They had those seasons where they would have 2, 3 captains. Darren Sammy was captain.
Yes.
Yeah. Was it? No, Cameron White was Deccan Chargers, but I remember Darren Sammy replaced someone else mid-season, or he was replaced mid-season. So they've always had that issue, except when David won.
Some people in the comments get very angry when I say that the Sunrisers and Deccan Chargers are 2 different teams. By the way, there are some hardcore Deccan Chargers loyalists. And to be fair, why would you change the team's name when you were Go the Chargers? Go the Chargers.
What a great song as well. Go Chargers. Go. Yeah, I should hum it all
I
the
remember
time.
getting a tuk-tuk driver in Sri Lanka to sing it on camera once. And I
nice.
don't even remember what the bit was about. Anyway, it is interesting. I don't see a captain there. So Bhuvi is my current thoughts.
Yeah, well, he's been captain before.
It's not the worst one. It just, with his injury concerns and everything else, it seems like a bit of a stretch for him. But see how we go. Capitals. So the Capitals.
I have an option though.
Oh yeah.
Brian Lara off-field captain. I think that's what's going to happen. It's Brian Charles Lara, man. He only knows to be a leader. So I have a feeling he'll be taking a lot of calls from the outside.
I like the idea of him just picking a different captain based on his whim, how he's woken up in the morning, just vibes-based captain. A bit like how he was appointed the coach, vibes-based coach.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, Capitals. Quite interesting there. They basically kind of needed someone in the middle order,
Yeah.
and they've ended up with Salt and Russo. And I'm a big fan of both of those players. I'm not sure how they fit them into this side. I think Salt. I had this feeling in my head, and I can't remember if I've looked at the numbers, but I had this feeling in my head that he's probably a little bit more adaptable to the middle order. So that's probably playing with England. I'm trying to remember back because domestically, I'd say he would have mostly batted up the order. But Russo is just like the most quintessential number 3 in T20 cricket. But his skills should translate further down if they go to if they need them. It's almost I almost feel like that was the most low key IPL auction what the Capitals did.
Yeah, they barely featured, right? At some level, it was all about Rajasthan for a while, and then Sunrisers had their go. And then, of course, the big buys were, as you expect, went to Mumbai, Punjab, and Chennai. They generally get the big buys, don't they? So, yeah, Delhi Capitals kind of cruised along to the extent like you generally, when these days you have an IPL auction, Ricky Ponting kind of features quite heavily in it. He didn't. I didn't see a massive Ricky Ponting presence or a massive code. Actually, oh, he was here. That's right. That's why. Because I bumped into him yesterday. No wonder we didn't see much of Ricky Ponting or in Kochi. Kochi, yeah. Hey, speaking of IPL, you know who I just bumped into 15 minutes ago, right outside my Airbnb? Someone who, I don't know, is Kane Richardson still in the IPL? No, he isn't, right?
He wasn't drafted this year, was he?
No, he wasn't. Yeah, so he was just like, yeah, it was lovely. We were just entering our Airbnb with our dogs, Isha and I, and then Skane Richardson and his partner with their baby. So it was like this South Australian meetup, even though he's not South Australian, never was, and was briefly, but not isn't anymore. But yeah, it's nice. So, yeah, it kind of took me to the whole. It set me up for the IPL auction, knowing that he's in there. He should be there. I think he's a really good bowler. But
Who would he play? Who I'm trying to think of who needs an overseas death bowler. I'm not sure. I'm trying to think back to the teams. Do you know who could have? It actually might be the next team that's about to come up. So KKR, they're just not a death team, and also they did something really bizarre, only because this feels like an old school IPL move. They picked Lytton Das. Now,
yeah.
I think we all know I'm Lytton Das as big. In fact, he made runs in the Test match. It took everything I had, not to mention his score in that Test match, which almost set up the victory. We'll set up a close game. He there's nothing in his numbers that suggests he should be in the IPL, other than the fact that he played one of the best innings we've seen against India in that last World Cup.
Yes.
And that's such a I don't know. Was it Heinrich Klaassen? Who was it? Heinrich Klaassen or one of the other? There was a random South African who did it in a game, and then ended up in
Richard Levy, even though he didn't. Yeah, I mean, even though he did not hit I think he hit 100 against England, if I'm not mistaken, or some other, New Zealand in a T20, and immediately he was drafted into Mumbai.
Was it? Yeah, and then so you have obviously Cameron Green is another one at this time, and you do see them occasionally, but it's a nice throwback. I think the biggest move they made probably was before the draft. They had a trade for, and by trade I don't mean trade, but they were given Gurbaz. Do you think? Where do you rate Gurbaz? I mean, I know I told you before I wouldn't bring him up, and now I have. But do you think he's top 3 IPL material, or is he just below that?
I think he will get there. Like some of the when you see him bat, there's definitely something special about him. Like I remember a couple of shots he played in that game against Australia at the Adelaide Oval, where Afghanistan almost got over the line. They should have. But even though all the focus was on Rashid Khan, not just because it was Adelaide, but because of the way he batted towards the end, there were a few shots Gurbaz played early on to give them that start, which really told you why there is this excitement about him. Like he's got these quick hands, he's really good to watch. So I think he'll get there. Maybe in the next. He's still young, isn't he? I think I'm pretty sure he's still in his. I mean,
he's an Afghanistani player. He's whatever age they say he is.
Oh, we'll stick to the official ages then.
Yeah,
I think he's in his. Yeah, he's not 30. I think he's still like 25. 23, whatever it is, but I think there is something there for sure. Like and he's made to bat in the subcontinent though. You can make that out. Like the way he scores his runs as well. He's good at hitting the ball straight down the ground, and I think 21 says Sunit. So there you go. Well, that's what we will call him a 21-year-old Gurbaz for now. Like, yeah.
Yeah. No, I think he could be interesting. I feel like they're going to have to rely, not, maybe not on him having a great season, but I think they're going to have to rely on him being in the side for a good period of time. It'd be really interesting to see where he is. Shall we move on to Mumbai,
Yes.
who they paid, 2.1, is it 2.1 million? No, 1.9 million. What did Green go for?
3.15 million
3.15
Australian. I
million.
don't know the US.
Yeah. Roughly, they paid $100,000 per T20 over that he has bowled
Yes.
because he's bowled 21 overs in his career. It's weird. There's part of me that thinks, look, I mean, I've been obsessed with Cameron Green for a very long time. And there is a part of me that thinks this could be almost a good sign, right? Because we're now getting to the point in T20 cricket where instead of waiting for someone to be very good, scouts are saying, do you know what? This guy is good, and we're going to do that. The other part of me does go that this is not really, he's not really been picked to be a rookie. Do you know what I mean? You've not picked him on a long term. And I know the Ambani son was talking about, we've got a lot of young players. And I get that. I see their squad. I kind of see what he's saying there. But if Cameron Green can never bowl more than 2 overs a game, he's going to have to be top 10 overseas batters to even, not even break even, but, to have any impact at all. It seems to me like and let's not have a go at Mumbai. Everyone wanted him. There was 3 or 4 teams bidding him up, and they were all going to pay a ridiculous amount. I don't know. Let's start with his bowling. I don't know where he bowls in T20 cricket at the moment that would best suit him. When you've seen him bowl he's bowled so little. I don't think he can bowl up front. Maybe he can bowl a few overs in the middle. I think he'd get absolutely hammered at the death. There's nothing to say he can't learn because he's bloody tall and he's fairly quick. And he's reasonably accurate. I don't think he's specially accurate. But from a bowling perspective, you'd have to say, you're just guessing, right? You're just guessing that this is going to work in the same way that teams are still guessing that Ben Stokes' bowling will one day work, right?
Especially in T20 cricket.
Yeah, that's what I mean in T20 cricket. And then his batting, if they were desperate for an opener, it probably makes a lot more sense. For this year, is he going to open ahead of Ishan or Rohit? I can't imagine he's going to be ahead of Rohit. And surely Ishan makes more sense as an opener, although they could push him down a spot or two and move Sky around. But again, they picked him. It almost feels like they want his bowling at the moment more than his batting. But every time he has not opened the batting in T20 cricket, he's looked like you batting.
Yeah, true. That is true. Unfortunately, you have seen me bat. But I think that the what I was trying to get was I wrote this down when the auction happened. They said Cam Green gives them lifetime value, which is I think a strong statement to make about and I liked it. I mean, I like that term, lifetime value. And look, I just finished writing a piece this morning. I don't think it's appeared yet on CricBuzz, where I said just going back to the Boxing Day test, or day one yesterday. Yes, he did get a lower order wickets, but the way he broke that partnership, Jared, when nothing was happening, the ball was doing nothing, and Mitchell Stark had gone off the field, and he comes in and he struggled with his bowling action a little bit this summer, but I think he's got it aligned now. He's worked a lot with Andre Adams in the nets in Brisbane and here at the MCG, and you could see he was in good rhythm. But he then started bowling cross seamers, and he actually got the 2 outswingers to go quite a bit. And I asked Kyle Verena this after the day's play, and he said, yeah, nothing was happening, and then he got them to shape away with those cross seamers. It came from nowhere. And I think that's where, like I put in my piece, like what Mumbai Indians spent 3.15 million to get him. But in that spell, he really proved that why he's priceless for Australia. That sounds good, doesn't it? Yeah, but it's slightly cheesy, but it is true though. I mean,
but in Test cricket, you can't really argue that, right? And
not at all.
And if you go back to what you were saying and what they were saying about, this lifetime value, that's absolutely fine. But my mind goes back to if they'd made that same decision with Ben Stokes when he was young.
Yeah.
Right? We're still saying Ben Stokes get paid a lot of money, but for not being a consistent T20 player.
Yeah.
I'm not saying Cameron Green is going to be like that, and his development is completely different. Ben Stokes played a lot of cricket when he was young. Cameron Green hasn't played a lot of cricket, which means that every chance when he starts to play it, but there's no way it's not a fascinating moment in T20 cricket and the IPL specifically.
Oh no, no, absolutely, you're right. But Mumbai Indians have also started. They have pioneered this vision in T20 league cricket, right? Where they've invested in the likes of Brevis and others, and like the way they bought Jofra Archer last year, despite knowing he won't play. And I think by lifetime value, they almost mean like we're going to get him before anyone else does, even if it means that he doesn't play too many games this summer. We want Cam Green when he is at his peak, and he's not at his peak yet, right? He's 23, he's learning every day, like you said, with bat and ball and across all formats. He's barely played T20 cricket. You know, it helped what he did in India against some decent bowlers in September. But what that lifetime value, the way I see it, is what they mean is like, yes, we're taking a punt on him when he seems to be on fire in a way in T20 cricket, but we are investing in him for the future. When he's 27, 28, and you know he's a world beater across all formats, guess who will have him? We will. And we would have invested so much money and energy in him that he will have our loyalty. So, or he'll be loyal to us. I think that's a very Mumbai Indians way of looking at it, and that's why I think you're right, it's a very significant moment in IPL history.
That also suggests to me that they don't think that there's going to be another mega auction in 4 years' time.
There you go.
Because how do you fit in Ishan Kishan, Sky, Bumrah, Jofra, Brevis, maybe Stubbs is on their side as well?
Yeah, he is. He is. Yeah.
They've got a lot of young players who might come good in the next 3 or 4 years, and a couple of players who are already absolute stars.
Yeah.
I think they're betting on the fact that that won't happen. Anyway, we'll have a quick break, and then after the break, we'll finish off with the rest of the teams.
If you love the language of cricket and want more, then head over to the 99.94 app, and you can hear all of our podcasts and cricket commentary. We're adding new shows all the time and covering cricket series from all over the world. Be the first to hear all of our announcements by following us on social media at 9994DM. Welcome to Cricket's Conversation.
All right, welcome back to Uncovered with Jarrod, Kimber and Bharat and Jarrod. Okay, let us go to Punjab. So Sam Curran, just fascinating. Last, 18 months in T20 cricket for Sam Curran. He was a power play bowler whose batting didn't look that special 18 months ago. And now he's a death bowler whose batting has gone through the roof. I know that for a very long time, he's been trying to get up the order at Surrey. And it's not that Surrey didn't think he was talented. They just didn't think he was more talented than some of the other batting that had. They've taken more risks on his batting recently. He's developed a little bit more. But that bowling, England fixing his bowling was remarkable. Having said all that, he's not particularly that tested batting up the order in the higher leagues. And we've seen, 7 games of him bowling well at the death. It's really interesting to go from, go to a position where he wasn't, in favour at CSK. Is that the way of putting it? I don't know if that's quite right, but, he's not there. Right? And then suddenly everyone wanting him a little bit later. It really is a huge turnaround. And we do see this with all-rounders, which, goes back to the Cameron Green point.
Yeah.
We do see with all-rounders that they sometimes take a while to develop just because Sam Curran was so good at bowling, he probably didn't spend as much time batting early in his career. But this is a big one.
It is. And, it also goes back to the fact that even yesterday on commentary, Simon Katic, who works with us, like he was talking about it. And everyone who's followed the IPL and the auction, and he's been part of a few, knows that these in-between auctions are the ones where you can, if your timing is right as a player, you end up making more money than you would in a bigger auction. Because teams go in with, at least 10, 15 players already there, retained. And they go into these auctions with very specific needs, right? And clearly this time, an all-rounder is always going to be valuable. But this time you had like a particular kind of all-rounder floating around, like a Ben Stokes, a Cam Green, a Sam Curran. Two proven, one in Cam Green's case, with a lot of potential, enormous potential and talent, and that performance against India. So you knew that those three, you have those nobody else in that class, right, in terms of all-rounders. So it's not like a mega auction where you would have 11 or 12 of those, including a few Indians thrown into the mix. Here it was basically those three, and no surprises that those three went for such massive money. You can throw sort of someone like a X Factor talent like Harry Brook in there as well. We forgot to mention him when we spoke about the Sunrisers. So I think that plays a lot into the price tag for Sam Curran. Also helps that you've been the player of the tournament in a World Cup just 2 months ago. And funnily enough, or ironically, the one game his death bowling didn't work was against India, right? Where Hardik Pandya tore him apart, if you remember. So, to that in contrast to the Liton Das case, as we saw, like his innings at the Adelaide Oval, again at the Adelaide Oval, might have won him that IPL deal. But I don't think he fell out of favor in Chennai. Every time I saw him play with Dhoni as captain, and I would always say this, you can always make out what Dhoni thinks of you as a player by looking at the way he celebrates a catch of your bowling, if that makes sense.
But Dhoni wasn't captain last year.
He wasn't. I think that's where it changed. No, you're absolutely right. Till 2 years ago, there's this thing with Dhoni. Like if he just like almost celebrates wickets or catches matter of factly, that almost is his way of saying, look, I expect you to do this. There's no big deal. I mean, I rate you really highly. It's only when he starts getting excited that something's happened that he didn't expect to happen, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Also means that he doesn't rate the bowler as much as he rates someone else. So I thought he had won Dhoni's trust, but depends, right? In a different setup. And Chennai did start off struggling in their last year, so I think that maybe have played into it as well. But he's played
still,
for...
to go from that to being sold for 3.5 times more.
Oh yeah. I mean,
it's huge. And
it's
it's not that Chennai didn't think he was good. I felt at times with Chennai, they just didn't know how. They didn't feel that he could bowl outside of the power play.
Yeah.
And they didn't think his batting was quite at the level that that they probably wanted that to be if he couldn't bowl the 4 overs automatically. There's no doubt that in some ways he's a different player now than he was before.
Yes.
But he's not that much removed from the last IPL. And for his price to go through the roof.
Yeah.
It does seem a little bit crazy to me. I think about it as an analyst, like I can imagine the owners and the coaches being crazy for him. I would have been saying nothing but negative things, despite the fact that I was positive on Sam Curran as a T20 player when none of them rated him. So it's such a weird situation to be in. RCB. So RCB get Will Jacks, which I find really, really interesting, only because he's an off-spinner who probably needs to bat in the top 3. In fact, in his career, he's basically only ever batted in the top 3. And Glenn Maxwell is very similar. I assume he's the backup, and so we probably don't need to go on that too long. But it is interesting that Will Jacks is the player that fell to them, and they are going to be looking at it going, it's kind of two right-handers who bat in a similar position who both bowl part-time off-spin. I mean, Will Jacks is probably a little bit better than Maxwell, but again, it sort of negates Maxwell's value to them if he can't bowl, unless they're just hoping that every team plays left-handers.
Hey, there's a correction from Dollar about Sam Curran. He pulled out from the IPL last year because of a back injury. Yeah, see, it's your business to be on top of everything, Jared Kimber, not mine. So
that's why I said when you were talking about Dhoni, I was like, well, Dhoni was a captain last year.
But that's why, I think I was talking about when Sam Curran last played for CSK when Dhoni was captain, wasn't he?
He did eventually captain last year, but
he did eventually.
But even so, even if you don't play, there's something quite. I mean, that's even more remarkable for him to turn around. I think. There's no doubt that he played very well in some of the other competitions, and obviously went on to be very well in the World Cup. But,
of course.
The whole thing's very interesting. Royals. So.
Just on RCB, I thought the other impressive pick for me was Reece Topley.
Strategically,
Yeah, fantastic story. I remember my former colleague Rob Johnston wrote this outstanding piece 2 years ago where he followed Reece Topley for an entire year when he was injured. Like, you would speak to him on a weekly basis. It's a beautiful story. If it's still out there, you guys should go read it. He unfortunately got injured before the World Cup, right? Funnily enough, I did bump into his dad at the Perth airport. So he lands and then his son gets injured and the whole family flies back. It's quite funny. Not funny. It was interesting, like how it worked out. But yeah, I mean, Reece Topley's bowling has really gone through the roof in T20 cricket, hasn't it? In the last couple, he would have played a big role in England's campaign if he hadn't gotten injured. So you've obviously seen a lot more of him than I have, Jared. I thought it was a good pick.
Yeah, I think he's a backup because Berendorf didn't play last year, and they needed to fill that spot. Was my guess. But yeah, look, I remember when I first started doing analytics, his name kept popping really early on, and it's just that he hasn't played enough. It's not that he can't do these things. He's very good with the ball. I really liked it. I think RCB. We won't get bogged down because you need to get to the ground, but I thought RCB's. Their entire fate probably depends on how Siraj plays because he had such a spectacularly poor year last year.
He did that.
The Royals kept Joe Root because they were afraid that they weren't English enough. So they've got Joe Root. But I think Jason Holder's the interesting one there. Their tail was dreadful last year, and they basically really struggled with the bat. Holder at 7 and Ashwin at 8 looks a lot better. It's not that either of their all-time batting records are fantastic, but it gives the top order a little bit more strength. Last year they did very poorly at the death because they could only fit Obed McCoy into half the games, and I think he went in about 8 and over at the death when he actually bowled. It's possible that because they have to play Holder will play at the death. He takes a lot of wickets at the end, but also goes at like 11 runs and over. Which means that I would assume that Bolt or Prashid Krishna will have to bowl a lot more at the death. And they did not. I think Krishna went at 10.5 and over last year, and Bolt didn't bowl there very much at all. I think one of them's going to have to bowl a few more overs this year.
Unless Ashwin just finds a way of becoming a death bowler, you can back him to do that. Like, you never know. Don't, to
so
know more about
me to not mention that. Yeah, no, that is fair. He will open the bowling, close the bowling, and be the wicket keeper in true under 12 style. Lucknow, Puran, that's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money for someone who's never really set the IPL alert. I think there are a couple of innings then.
No, I mean, people keep saying that. He had a year and a half where he was incredible in the IPL. But unfortunately...
Right. That's when I wasn't watching, sorry.
But if you look at... But that's the common thought, right?
Yeah.
But if you actually have a look at his entire career, he had 2 years in all T20 cricket where he was brilliant. Before that, it took him a long time to get going. We know his backstory and the car accident and not developing quick enough. But he's now had... I think 2019 was his last really, really top-level T20 year. We're a long way away from that now. He's had 3 years. This year, I think he averaged 26 with a strike rate of about 135, 136. It's fine, but it's not Nicholas Puran numbers. So from that perspective, it seems like a weird one. But if you look at Lucknow, they kind of, I feel like they just needed someone who could bat at number 3. And maybe, I mean, I would... If I had the choice, I think I would have gone Riley Russo ahead of him now, even if Riley Russo's a bit older and doesn't have the same ceiling. If you're looking at this year, Riley Russo might have been the better bet. But I can also see, looking at this, why you would think that Puran is maybe your safest bet.
Oh, yeah. And again, he's still youngish and like he still seems like a long-term investment. So much has happened in his career. He's been captain of West Indies. He's no longer captain. You'll think that he's in his early 30s. He's not. That seems like one of especially the amount of money they were ready to spend on him also tells you, again, it goes back to being right place, right time, the right auction as well, but also how they maybe see him as a long-term prospect, right? Like, maybe even a future captain. Like, I'm sure we'll come to Chennai and Ben Stokes, I mean, two players at different stages of their career, of course, but that could be one way of looking at it as well.
Yeah, it's almost like a reclamation project. I could understand you spending $300,000 or $400,000 on him and then seeing how it's going, but obviously they weren't the only team that wanted him.
Yeah,
and
that's true. There's
and
always
that
another.
shows you that the teams are still thinking that there's a lot there. Kane Williamson and Gujarat, I don't know, thoughts?
I mean, it felt like purely. I love Kane Williamson as a person, as a cricketer, but purely on the basis of who doesn't? On the basis of how his T20 year has gone, it almost felt like a goodwill gesture, like to Kane Williamson. But look, the one thing we saw with that team is with Ashish Nehra and Hardik Pandya is there's this air of do what you feel like play the way you want to about that team to a large extent. So maybe that will allow Kane. It hasn't helped Kane Williamson that he's been captain and he's also been part of a franchise like the Sunrisers for so long. Like we've always heard about different kinds of pressures behind the scenes. David Warner fiasco would not have helped. You know how close those two are in real life. In real life, as this is all the wrestling, not in real life. I meant off field. But I think that also had a bearing on how he went about it. Now, no captaincy, and like I said, he could be given a role he hasn't had before. It could work out. I am actually going to put my money on Kane Williamson having a great season for them this time.
I don't think he'll play that much. I wonder if I can't remember what year was it. Was it 2018 or 2019 when RCB got McCullum, and McCullum kind of played as this sort of backup captain.
True.
With Vera, I wondered if that was the thoughts, and they were just not that Hardik needed guidance or anything, but just we have this spot. We know that we can use him to bat 4 or 5 games a year if we need to, and then we can go about it that way. Since you're the expert on all things Chennai, I finish up with Ben Stokes. What have you got for me there?
Oh, I'm surprised it took Ben Stokes so long to go to Chennai. He's such a Chennai kind of cricketer, right? Like he's loyal and he just has everything about him. He looks good in yellow, I think. I don't know if we've seen him in yellow, but
that's
he will.
The most important thing.
Oh, that's the most important thing. What else matters, right? Like, yeah. It's funny, right? All those years ago, 13 years ago, when the first English big names started coming into the IPL, I mean, some did play in 2008. Andrew Flintoff went to Chennai, didn't he? Like, and it's
controversially, if you remember.
Very controversially, of course. Yeah, and he got injured soon after, and I hope he's doing well. By the way, I hope of course, prayers and thoughts with him. Hope he's doing better after the terrible accident. But yeah, it's interesting that Ben Stokes has gone. I honestly expected him to be playing for Chennai earlier than this. He's had of course, he took a break from the IPL last couple of years or last year. But he had that run with Pune, which I think by far was his best run in the IPL. Right, that 100 he scored was quite special. The 1 matches for them. But yeah, like I saw someone put on social media, it's also like the old rising Pune Super Giants coming together, Dhoni, Rahane and Ben Stokes. Yeah, who knows, maybe Steve Smith comes in there somehow. I know he's not part of it now, but injury replacement, Steve Smith potentially, who knows. But yeah, so I think he will be captaining Chennai Super Kings next year. It's written in the stars, isn't it? Like, yeah, this should be Dhoni's last season. And once he's done with that, I have a very strong feeling Ben Stokes has been brought in, not just because he's Ben Stokes, the cricketer, but also Ben Stokes, the captain. And, he doesn't play one-day cricket anymore. Maybe by then the Ashes would be over. How many years of Test cricket does he have left at that point? He could well be captaining Chennai Super Kings for 5 years to finish off his cricket career. That's how I see it anyway. So, and that's how Chennai like to do it as well, right? Like they like to bring in established stars. They have created a few, of course, over the years. But yeah, that's a very Chennai pick for me.
But I mean, technically, I would say that over the history, they've been more about role players. So the fact that they've overpaid for someone who underperforms in general in the IPL, I think you're right. I think it does sort of smell of that. We can get him around for a long period of time. The interesting thing is how much time he will spend focusing on the IPL, and I mean mentally and preparing and everything else. But that's a problem for when the season starts, not now. I'm going to let you head down to the MCG. So I'm going to play an ad, and you can leave. Thank you to Bharat, and thank you for everyone for listening, and we'll see you again next week.
For sure. Bye.
There is something wrong in the cricket world, and while it may not be a conspiracy, there does seem to be a movement towards leaving more grass on the wicket, and thusly, the global batting average has dropped. If a similar thing has happened to you in your personal life, try Manscaped. Their Lawnmower 4.0 will help you trim any unwanted pubic grass. And once your downstairs track is taken care of, you can also use Manscaped's liquid formulations. So before heading outside, use the Crop Preserver Ball Deodorant to stay cool in the heat. And if you've been playing too many games recently and you need some help with your strip, why don't you go and get their Crop Reviver? I think I may possibly have taken all of this analogy too far. But the point is, Manscaped sells items that allow you to shave your pubic pitch. Use the code REDINKER, all one word, which is the name of my podcast, and you can get a 20% discount and free worldwide shipping while you curate your special strip like a team of sweaty men hoping it doesn't rain.